The lady from the church asked me to pray for her husband's soul. I said, "Of course, when did he die?" And she answered, "Tomorrow." No child should die alone. That's why I decided to let my son invite some friends over. Someone started having a coughing fit at my workplace. The problem is that I work alone in a morgue. Never knock on your door from the inside at dawn. The devil can knock on the outside. These macabre stories and others that can't be told on the channel, you'll see in the Cursed ebook. The link is in the comments. Buy it now. In a small, forgotten village nestled between dark forests, there stood an ancient apple tree. Its gnarled branches stretched out like skeletal fingers, casting long shadows over the ground. The villagers had always been wary of it, whispering tales of its cursed fruit. "Read the rules before eating apple from this tree," was a warning passed down through generations. Yet, with each harvest, the temptation to taste the forbidden fruit grew stronger. The tree's apples were unlike any others, shiny and red. They seemed to glow with an otherworldly allure. When a young traveler named Thomas arrived in the village, he couldn't resist their pull. Ignoring the villagers' warnings, he plucked an apple from the lowest branch and bit into it. As the sweet juice trickled down his throat, he felt a strange chill, but brushed it off as the evening's cold. The first rule of the tree was simple: never eat the apple before sunset. Thomas had broken this rule, but the village's warnings seemed superstitious. The apple tasted divine, but an inexplicable dread began to seep into his bones. He tried to shake off the feeling, but as night fell, he felt eyes watching him from the darkness. By midnight, Thomas's vision blurred. He stumbled through the village, unable to remember how he got there. The streets seemed longer, twisted, as if the very ground was shifting beneath him. Shadows danced along the edges of his sight, whispering ancient, forgotten languages. The villagers had warned him, but he hadn't listened. The second rule was never to eat the apple alone. Thomas had ignored this as well. As he walked through the silent village, he came across an old, abandoned house. Drawn by an unseen force, he entered and saw a figure slumped in a corner. It was his own reflection, or so it seemed, but with eyes that glowed a malevolent red. The figure in the corner started to move, mirroring Thomas's every action with eerie precision. The reflection's grin widened, revealing rows of sharp, jagged teeth. Thomas's heart raced as he realized that the reflection wasn't just a trick of the light, it was another version of himself, twisted and corrupted. Panic set in as Thomas tried to escape, but the doors and windows of the house had vanished. The walls closed in, suffocating him with their oppressive presence. His reflection reached out, its hand stretching unnaturally. Thomas tried to resist, but he could feel his own essence being pulled through the mirror's surface. The third rule was to never speak of the tree's apples to anyone outside the village. But Thomas's mind was unraveling, and he couldn't keep the dark secrets to himself. He started shouting about the horrors he'd witnessed, but his cries went unheard. The villagers, already familiar with the consequences, avoided him like a plague. Thomas's descent into madness was swift. He began seeing hallucinations of people he'd never met. each one twisted and distorted. Their mouths moved, forming words he couldn't understand. The more he spoke, the more the shadows grew, enveloping him in a cocoon of despair. One by one, the villagers began disappearing. They had warned Thomas, but he hadn't listened. Now the village was silent, save for the whispers of the wind through the ancient apple tree's branches. The once vibrant community had become a ghostly reminder of the tree's dark influence. As the last rays of sunlight vanished, the tree's power intensified. The apples seemed to pulsate with a sinister rhythm, and the air grew heavy with a palpable sense of dread. The few remaining villagers who had survived the curse knew better than to approach the tree again. They watched from a distance, haunted by the fates of their loved ones. The fourth rule was to never leave the village after consuming an apple. Thomas had defied this rule as well, driven by an irrational urge to flee, but the forest paths twisted and turned, leading him deeper into an unending labyrinth. Each step took him further from the safety of the known into a place where nightmares reigned supreme. The deeper Thomas ventured into the forest, the more disorienting the surroundings became. The trees seemed to shift, their branches clawing at him like skeletal hands. Shadows move with a life of their own, and distant echoes of laughter filled the air, mocking his plight. By dawn, Thomas had become a mere shadow of himself. His clothes were tattered, his eyes hollow. The forest seemed to feed on his fear, growing denser with every step. He was lost, not just physically, but mentally, as the apple's curse gnawed at his sanity. The fifth and final rule was the most ominous. Never take an apple from the tree without offering something in return. Thomas had taken without giving. The tree's anger manifested as a malevolent presence that pursued him relentlessly. It whispered promises of salvation, only to snatch away any hope he had left. In his last moments of clarity, Thomas realized the true nature of the curse. The apple tree was not merely a plant, but a sentinel for ancient, dark forces. It demanded tribute, and those who failed to comply were doomed to suffer an eternity of torment. The villagers had understood this, but he had not. As Thomas's strength waned, the forest grew darker, the shadows more oppressive. The whispers grew louder, forming a cacophony of despair that drove him to the brink of madness. He was now part of the tree's twisted legacy, a cautionary tale for those who might venture to close. The village, once vibrant, had become a place of dread. The warnings about the apple tree were etched into the very fabric of its existence. Newcomers who ignored the rules faced the same fate as Thomas. The village's isolation became its shield, protecting it from the curse it harbored. The cursed apples continued to grow, their allure undiminished. Those who stumbled upon the tree were drawn by its forbidden fruit, lured by its deceptive beauty. The warnings were clear, but the temptation proved too strong for many. Over time, the village faded into obscurity. The apple tree remained a dark sentinel among the ruins. Its branches continued to reach out, seeking new souls to ensnare. The rules, written in old, faded ink, remained as a chilling reminder of the price of ignorance. Generations passed, and the stories of the apple tree became folklore, but those who knew the truth still shivered at the thought of it. The tree's curse was not merely a tale, but a reality for those who dared to defy its rules. Travelers who ventured to close to the old village spoke of strange occurrences and eerie sights. Some claimed to have seen ghostly figures in the distance, their faces twisted in eternal torment. The apple tree's influence lingered, even as the village itself was forgotten. The apple tree became a symbol of forbidden knowledge, a warning etched into the collective memory of those who heard its story. It stood as a testament to the dangers of disobedience and the price of curiosity. Those who came across the tree in their dreams reported similar horrors. The boundaries between the dream world and reality seemed to blur, and the tree's curse reached beyond the waking realm. It became a nightmarish presence, haunting the dreams of many. The sixth rule, though rarely spoken, was that those who failed to heed the warnings would become part of the tree's twisted legacy. Their spirits would join the countless others trapped in the curse, eternally bound to the tree's dark influence. The apple tree's legacy continued to grow, its roots entwined with the fabric of the village's history. Those who ignored the rules faced an unending torment, their fates sealed by their own defiance. The tree's power remained undiminished, a constant threat to those who wandered too close. Legends of the tree spread far and wide, becoming a dark whisper among travelers and adventurers. Few dared to challenge the warnings, but those who did were never seen again. The tree's curse ensured that its story would be one of eternal dread. The village itself became a myth, a place spoken of in hushed tones. Its remains, overgrown and abandoned, stood as a reminder of the tree's power. The apple tree's dark influence persisted, casting a long shadow over the land. The seventh rule, known only to a few, was that the tree's curse could never be undone. The souls trapped by the tree's power were doomed to suffer, their fates sealed by the ancient, malevolent force that resided within the tree. As time went on, the apple tree became a legend of darkness and despair. Its tale served as a warning to those who dared to ignore the rules. The tree's influence remained a chilling reminder of the price of curiosity and the eternal nature of its curse. Until next time, thank you